Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for TWiT specials is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. Welcome to our live coverage of Apple's iPhone press conference. I'm calling it the Mea Culpa event. Live coverage of the world's most important tech news as it happens, brought to you by our friends at Slingbox. Use Slingbox to watch your favorite TV shows when you're away from home. If you'd like to find an in-store demo at a Best Buy near you, here's what you do. You go to slingbox.com. We thank our friends at Slingbox for providing live breaking news coverage for the last, well, all year, I guess, on TWiT. So happy about that, to have him back. Tom Merritt, Alex Lindsay will join me in just a little bit. We did not get an invitation to this event. I wonder why. In fact, Becky Worley, who was invited to the event and was going to live tweet it and cover it for us, got disinvited at the last minute. Actually, a big deal for... in my opinion, is that ABC decided instead to send one of their anchors to cover it, which shows you how seriously even the mainstream media are taking this. The genesis of the problem, of course, really came at, we became aware of it on day one, on the Thursday, when we picked up our Apple iPhone 4 for the first time, and I demoed it for you live right away on the air. We had heard about antenna problems. Ironically, none of the early reviewers really alluded to it. Walt Mossberg said there was an antenna problem, said Apple would have a fix. He didn't. He kind of implied it wasn't a big deal. And maybe it's not a big deal. It's possible that it's not a big deal. Apple has sent out a fix yesterday. They sent out 4.01. And as far as I can tell, all it did was take us from 5 bars here in the studio to 3 bars, even when I'm not holding it. And perhaps keep it from going below 3 bars. When we first did this with a brand new iPhone, we had 5 bars and were able to go to 0 bars within about 30 seconds by just holding it like this, which incidentally is a very natural way to hold it. And you can see that's still a problem even with 4.01. Get the glare out of there. So yeah, we are able to get to 0 bars. Apple says that fix merely changed the formula they use to more accurately reflect signal strength. They said that for the first 3 iPhones and in the early days of the iPhone 4, they were overestimating signal strength. So now by showing us that we have crappy signal, we don't get so upset when it goes to 0. I'm not squeezing it. I'm just holding it. It's not how hard you hold it. It's really having the meat of your hand there. And this, I mean, as you can see, this is how I hold my phone. In fact, 2 days ago, I stopped using the iPhone entirely because I dropped too many calls. Some very important calls, just boom, gone. Mostly my house, because the house is also weak. It's a 2 or 3 bar signal on this new scale, and dropping calls is the issue for me. And that's really the question. When I brought this into the AT&T store, they said, "Well, yes, but do you drop calls?" And that's really the issue. It's not so much what these bars say. Remember Jerry Pornell on TWiT about 2 weeks ago pointed out, bars are silly. It's digital. It either works or it doesn't. There's no kinda working. What you really ought to have is a light, a button, a knob, something that says, yeah, I got enough signal to do the job, or no, I don't. The number of bars is irrelevant. It's whether you can get a phone call through or not. The Monarch in the chat room. By the way, we do have the chat room going, irc.twit.tv if you're watching right now. The Monarch in the chat room is pointing me to a Anand Tech article. Anand's been so good on this subject all along. And we will get Spencer Webb on the show again in just a little bit. He's our antenna expert at antennasys.com, who's also written some really great stuff on this subject. Anand has a article on Anand Tech analyzing the fix and what it does. This is part of the problem. Even some people say even Consumer Reports didn't do, some say, the right thing in their analysis. It's very difficult to analyze RF and antenna stuff. It's very difficult. I think Anand did the best job. Spencer agreed with us, by the way, talking about the issue. They were able to jailbreak their iPhone to show actual signal strength, something that's been missing from iOS 4, and we're able to demonstrate the drop in signal. So here's what Anand says. Since those initial measurements that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, we've been working tirelessly to both characterize the problem, fully understand the mechanisms behind it, and report on a number of possible solutions. iOS 4.1 rolled around yesterday. We immediately dove in to find out just how much the bar to signal strength mapping has changed. They say that this is the same as 4.1 beta, which they've also been looking at. And you can see that they now, changed the bars to show a number, which is much more accurate. They said last time they drove around town with iOS 4 testing the phone and recording signal strength. Another evening of driving around, Anand and I did our fair share of moving around to get a complete picture of what the new cutoffs are. And this is the 4.0 mapping. This was the map that everybody was so excited to see. Signal strength in dBm. It is a logarithmic scale. Old bars, new bars. Let me make it a little smaller so we can see them both on the screen. So what is it? The results are conclusive. Apple has dramatically changed the signal strength to signal bar mapping in iOS 4.01 and the 4.1 beta, making the dynamic range not only much broader, so from 121 dB down to 51 dB up, instead of 113 to 51. But the values for each bar are also much wider. The range of signals that corresponds to bars 3 and 4 are the same, with bar 2 is only slightly less. The cutoff value for 2 bars to 1 bar remains the same, but every other value is increased. The result is the worst-case drop of 24 dB no longer makes all the signal bars disappear, just 2. That's about what it's cosmetic. And now, MG Sigler implied that he was getting, on TechCrunch, implied that maybe he was dropping fewer calls. And I'd be curious if any of you have seen anything like that. Now, let me send a note to Anand, because I'd like to get Anand on the show. He's been on many times before. He's a great guy, and if I can get him on to talk about this, I will. Get Tom Merritt and Alex Lindsay here in just a second. Who was the guy who did this with him? Brian, I guess. Anand's done such a good job of this all along. Razorback says it's the flux capacitor. That's the problem. As I said, even with the case I was and this is important. Even with this case, and I put a plastic iFrogs case on it. There aren't too many cases available. This is something that they had at the AT&T store. I really hate the bumper case. It's really ugly. Sarah and Tom have one, and it doesn't seem to be a very nice case. It's a shame to put a case on this. An interesting point brought up by the Wall Street Journal today. According to the Wall Street Journal's sources, Apple knew. They've known for at least a year, although they deny it, that there was a problem with this antenna design. And according to the Wall Street Journal sources, they didn't fix it because Steve loved the design so much. And knowing what we know about Steve, that frankly isn't so surprising. Steve's attitude would be, as always, hey, just hold it different. Nothing wrong with the design. Put a case on it or hold it different, but it's so beautiful. What Apple did that is different is this is the antenna. The antenna is now external to the phone. There's a Wi-Fi antenna, a 3G antenna, and along the bottom, the cell phone antenna. Not clear, a couple of experts, including Consumer Reports, believe that the issue is bridging this little plastic insulator here with your finger, connecting the Wi-Fi antenna to the cell phone antenna. Spencer Webb, our antenna guy, says, nah, it's not bridging so much as the fact that your hand is blocking the antenna and attenuating the signal. So we don't know exactly what's going on. There have been rumors that Apple might offer a in-store fix, or that even they have slipstreamed into production a new design for the phone that coats this area. If I rub my finger along this, I can feel the insulator. There's a change in texture. And some say the new iPhones that are just coming out don't have that problem or that sensation that somehow this has been coated or insulated. So the question is, what is Apple going to do? The answer ranges everything from bitch out the media and say it's your fault, there's nothing wrong with the phone, which I think is perfectly possible from Apple. Although why they'd hold a press conference to say that, I'm not sure. They clearly see that there's a problem, especially with Consumer Reports' lack of recommendation last week. To offering inexpensive bumpers in the stores, or even maybe free bumpers. Some people say that if you really beg, you can get a free bumper. Others have said that Apple has said no. Under no circumstances give out a free bumper. It's an admission of guilt. And, of course, their response could go all the way up to a recall, which some say would cost them as much as $1.5 billion to recall the several million iPhones that have been sold to date. So in about 10 minutes, we will find out if we go. Hey, Tom Merritt's here with his bagel. Hey, Tom, have a seat. No, I'm fine. They're from New York?
Becky brought them yesterday.
Becky brought bagels from New York and didn't tell me?
They're in the kitchen.
Okay, where are they from, though, in New York?
Katz's, I think.
Oh, okay, I might have to have one. We'll let Tom Merritt get settled. We'll take a look, meanwhile, at Anand Shimpi's non-tech bars. So this is the new bars. This is a really interesting, although difficult to read, infographic on how the signal strength changed. Top is the old style. Bottom is the new style. You see it goes down farther to the left, and the bars indicate something different. And this is kind of what Apple said. This is not a fix, I have to point out. Here's signal bar mappings for Android 2.2 on GSM, iOS 4, and iOS 4.01. And you can see that there is a very different way of measuring these bars. It is logarithmic, is how we traditionally think of them. And then you see both Android 2.2 and the old iPhone mapping are more logarithmic. It's almost linear in the new iPhone mapping. It's interesting. And it goes much farther down. The point here being that you don't get 0 bars as quickly on the new software as you did on the old. Let's take a look. Let's try it one more time. I'm going to take the case off of here. I'll tell you one thing. We used to get 5 bars in the studio. Whoops.
You have the new one?
This is 401. And you can see we're already only getting 3 bars. So that's one change. Although, according to these graphs, we shouldn't be seeing that.
I have 4.
You have 4?
And I have the 4.01, too.
And watch, there it is. It's going down. And I don't know if that's 1 bar or no bars, but it's pretty low. Again, I want to kind of underscore this. It's not the bars. It's whether the calls drop, right?
Yeah. The bars will drop faster the farther away you are from the tower.
Right.
Because you have a weaker signal.
Weaker signal. The issue is, does this mean you drop a call? And I can only tell you my anecdotal report, which is I've dropped so many calls on the iPhone I've stopped using it.
Is that right?
Yeah, mostly at home where I do have a weaker signal than even here.
I don't make enough calls.
Yeah, have a seat. So Tom Merritt's here. We got
2.
Alex Lindsay joining us.
It's a party.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, how's it going?
There's bagels.
Bagels.
Go get a bagel. Would you get me one too? Just a half. Cream cheese, please. Is there cream cheese?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The cream cheese is from the deli over here in Petaluma.
It's not from New York?
No.
I don't want
But the
it.
bagels are from New York.
Hey, John, would you focus and pull on Tom? Although that soft focus makes you look so much younger. More beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Just
in my
pull it.
contract, isn't it?
you
Everything has
go.
to be soft focus to hide my advanced age.
No, mostly to hide your beard. So
Well,
what
the
is your,
beard's already
what, do
hiding.
you, what do you think, Tom? We're going to get. I'm going to ask. I've asked Anand Shimpy to join us. Spencer Webb will be joining us a little bit later on. Becky was uninvited from the event, unfortunately, and I'm not sure if that's Apple or ABC.
A little both, from what I understand. Apple being the usual, we can only allow so many people in.
Well, it is, and this press conference is being held at One Infinite Loop in the Apple auditorium
small
there. It's
place,
about,
yeah.
I think, as I remember, about 350 people. So it's not a massive place. They can't have everybody in there. And they did not invite all the Apple press. They did invite Macworld, I know, is going. Mashable is sending somebody.
Did Gizmodo get an I think they.
I got the impression that Gizmodo
them.
did. Well, I don't know, but they're going to live blog it.
Oh, okay. So somebody did get invited.
Maybe they're sneaking in. Ben Parr is going for Mashable. TechCrunch is sending 2 people, MG Siegler and Mike Arrington.
I'm sure CNET's sending a couple of 3 people.
And yet, we weren't invited.
Me and you weren't invited,
yeah.
no.
And I would argue that we have a larger audience on MacBreak Weekly alone than Macworld Magazine subscription. Not to mention the fact that the radio show is heard by about 1 million people every weekend. However, I have been fairly critical of the iPhone, and
Well, that shouldn't matter.
Shouldn't
if
matter.
you're fairly critical, it shouldn't matter. If you're just,
matter.
if it's an assassination
I've been
attempt, which
very
it's
critical.
not.
I think this is. I have said, and I said from day one, that this is a more serious problem than Apple is acknowledging. Apple's response has been tepid, to say the least. They need to step forward and do something more. And finally, 2 days ago, I said I'm not going to use the iPhone anymore because it's a piece of crap. I think that's not that tepid.
It's your honest opinion.
It's a great phone. If I didn't have to make phone calls, that's what Alex Lindsay says. Is I don't care. I don't make phone calls.
Well, that's kind of the way I am. I don't make a whole lot of phone calls on it. Although I did a live, or I actually was a recorded hit on KMOX the other day, and I just moved in, so I don't have a landline set up yet. I did it on the iPhone about the iPhone antenna problems.
And did it drop?
No, it was fine. You know why? I didn't hold it in my left hand.
Well, I am a lefty, and that might be part of the reason.
Well, and if I did hold it in my left hand, but I did it like that. You know,
Yeah, you did the Vulcan.
I held it right. I held it the correct way.
I think that a company should not require certain fealty before they allow people to attend their press conferences.
And if they did invite Gizmodo, that's a good sign that they're at least
I'm sure I was just overlooked.
partly.
I'm sure it was just an overlook. And the truth is, I don't really care. I wasn't going to go down there anyway. Maybe they know that as well.
It's probably more podcasting prejudice than it is.
Well, but I host a national radio show over 111 markets, including San Francisco, Seattle, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. It seems to me that, well, of course, they didn't invite Kim Commando either, so there you go.
They didn't invite Kim Commando.
Everybody in the chat room thinks it's because I held up that laptop and streamed the iPad event, which is
That might be. That would be make more sense.
Could be. Becky thinks it's possibly because she went over and talked to Brian Lamb about his stolen iPhone.
Well, you got to cover that, though.
I don't think Apple. Here's the interesting thing: how do you hold a press conference and not allow people to stream it?
We were talking about that the other day. Ken Shepardson, our engineering guy here, was like, "Well, wait a minute, it's a press conference, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it's an Apple press conference."
And that's the point.
But the press is supposed to be. Yeah, well, but it's on their campus. They can do whatever they want, and they shut it down. And I think it does give them a bad name when people talk about Apple in the sense of them being uppity and sort of snobbish. It comes from moves like that where they used to let the live video stream all the time, all their keynotes and everything, and then suddenly they just shut it down.
Rafe Needleman says that Apple has turned away the CNET camera crew.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So they are not allowing cameras into the studio. Alex Lindsay is joining us with his bagel.
I got the bagel.
These are stale now.
They are a day old.
They're a day old. You don't eat bagels a day old. They're already sinkers to begin with.
They just need a little microwave.
There's a
microwave it?
bagel cam. Microwave it. Mm-hmm. Okay, Alex, you're getting close to getting thrown out of here. Microwave it. These are cats' bagels.
I'm just saying that 10 seconds.
I'm just saying.
Once they're a day old, 10 seconds, and they're just like, bam.
There is a chemical effect on bread that a microwave, just a little bit of heat.
Just a little.
All right, it's 10 a.m. We're going to check and see if I hate to interrupt.
I used to work at a startup.
I know, but
Sorry.
But I just want to. I hate to interrupt here, but just in case, we're going to go now and see if there's any live coverage. Jason Snell says Jazz. Jason Snell, editor-in-chief of Macworld Magazine, says Jazz is playing. The members of the press get seated and set up their laptops. Please turn off your MiFi. Actually, I have a Droid X now. I wonder if he'll say, turn off your Droid X. Your tethering. Turn off your tethering on you Android lovers.
Well, I think that's why you're not. Was I running around doing bagels when you were talking about not getting in?
I think it was because I don't know. Who knows?
I think it's because you streamed.
They haven't invited me to an Apple event in a while. I don't care.
Since that one.
What do we think they're going to do?
Since that one. You're right. Since that one.
I think
They haven't had that many since that
You got
one.
the Steve stink eye.
Yeah, I don't care.
What do you think they're going to do? I think they're going to give gift cards out, like they did with
For
the
bumpers?
with the price change.
Or here's a $50 gift card
$50
for
gift
your
card.
trouble.
You can use it for a bumper. You can use it for whatever you want, and then I think there'll be an optional either exchange or repair program where they'll swap it out or code it for you. Probably an exchange.
No recall? Anybody voting for a recall?
Stay far away from that word.
But I'll tell you that if they did a recall, that'd be a home run. I mean, that would really show.
In my opinion,
I will say
it's what they need to do.
They got the money to do it. It's $365 million, according to the report that
really
we sent out.
Others have said $1.5 billion, but Andrew Horowitz did a pretty good analysis.
Yeah, he did. I thought that was a good analysis, and he said it was about 365, 345, something like that. But the thing is they've got $40 billion in the bank. They're making so much money selling these things that the goodwill is worth it.
And this is the point that a number of PR professionals have made. This isn't about the iPhone anymore.
Yeah.
This is about Apple's brand.
Yeah.
And
I don't think they'll call it a recall, even if they do a recall.
Yeah.
Because that's just
what would they call it?
Well, but Apple is very,
a freebie.
They avoid those charged words, and they would say, it's an exchange program.
It's a magical exchange program.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be. It's going to be. It's magical. Like all you have to do is we'll send you a little box and you put it in there. And then
we got something we think you're really going to enjoy today, Alex. You bring in your phone. We'll give you another phone. It works. It just works.
I don't know if I want to give mine back.
Let me ask the chat room: how many people are experiencing dropped calls? I have to say, are you now experiencing dropped calls?
Oh, I don't even think about putting it in my hands.
Okay, so
I don't even think about holding my phone.
That's been my experience, and that's why
That's fine.
I frankly went back to Android because I just cannot. I'm on business calls, and it's embarrassing. Also, the proximity sensor is still broken, so I'm sending
I have had
DTMF
that.
tones
Yeah.
down the line to people I'm talking to, or worse, I mute them. I was on a call the other day, and the woman says hello,
Yeah.
and I'm going hello, Leo, are you? And she hangs up on me, and I realize, oh great, I muted the call by my cheekbone.
I will say that I belong to the conspiracy theorist group that says that putting the cell phone next to my ear is cooking my brain because I get headaches when I have it on my. I literally get headaches if I hold my phone up.
Brain. It's just a matter of whether it's bad for you or not.
Well, I can feel it. Like I'm like a half an hour on the phone, and my ear will be aching. My whole side of my head will be aching. So
That used to happen to me with cordless phones too, actually.
Yeah, so I always have a headset in, and so I never have a drop call like that. And it's almost. I spent 2.5 hours this morning on the phone. I talk about not wanting to be on the phone, but I literally from 7 a.m. until 9:35, I was on phone calls.
Well, Jason Snell says the town hall theater is only half full, so the idea that they were going to run out of seats.
Sit back, Alex. In fact, open up because you see on the two shot. I want to see your chewing. That's great.
In slow motion. Here we go.
Okay, slow motion chew.
No. Oh, sorry.
Town Hall Theater in 4 Infinite Loop, only about half full, probably due to the very short notice for this event we heard about on Wednesday evening. Says Jason Snell, the iPhone antenna song is playing. What? He must be joking. Is there an iPhone antenna song?
Not that. Well, unless there's some meme I missed.
Ricardo's asking if he can post this on his blog. Absolutely. Unlike Apple, we allow you. We have all our stuff is Creative Commons licensed, non-commercial, attribution, share alike. As long as you adhere to that license, you can do anything you want with it. You're watching live coverage of Apple's iPhone, we presume iPhone press conference. Breaking news coverage brought to you by Slingbox. Use Slingbox to watch your favorite TV shows when you're away from home. To find an in-store demo.
It's a YouTube video, the iPhone antenna song.
And they are actually playing it? They can't really be playing it. That's hysterical.
Well, he's got a link in there anyway.
Well, at least they have a sense of humor.
He put a link in
If
his
they're doing it. If they're actually doing
cover it live. Here, I'll play it on. I'll play it on here. Oh, is this? Who is this? The Rock Cookie Bottom, Jonathan Mann. It's as good as anything.
So if they do a recall, are you going to send yours back?
Yeah, I have two. I have one in a box that I didn't open because I'm waiting to see what happens.
I'm a little obsessed with building a bumper or a case that actually extends my capabilities.
This case
Through,
did not
by
protect me from dropped calls. I have to say, it does. It does seem to impact.
You still have it. Huh?
Yeah,
Plus, you still have AT&T. You can't get away from it all.
That's the other problem, is telling when the drop calls are from AT&T and when
Right.
they're from
Well,
the
and this is
antenna.
one thing somebody said. Maybe Apple will just blame AT&T and leave. It's
They
not
won't
our
do that.
fault,
Maybe that's
man.
you know what would be amazing is if they suddenly did an announcement going, due to all these problems, we are now dropping AT&T and moving to Verizon.
We're recalling AT&T.
We're recalling
Bring in your
it.
iPhone.
There you go.
We'll give you a Verizon iPhone.
Wow.
Let you out of your contract.
That'd be a pretty big announcement, huh?
All right, Steve Jobs emerges.
You know,
They're actually, it sounds like, according to Jason Snell, they're actually playing that YouTube video.
Wow.
Get over it and move on.
Yeah.
Don't buy if you bought one and you don't like, bring it back. If you don't want an iPhone,
Well, this signals their intentions here.
If they
You don't
play
like-
that song in the press conference, they're just really missing
Yeah.
the point on this one. You don't make a consumer product that doesn't work and then say, oh, if you don't like it, you could take it back. That's like Toyota saying, hey, no problem. If the pedal sticks, just take it back.
You don't like the constant acceleration?
Take it back.
Return
Now,
the car.
admittedly, nobody died
Well-
from dropped calls,
well,
but
wave-
dropped calls, this is a freaking phone. It should work.
Steve Jobs says it's going to be a 15-minute presentation. You know we're not perfect, and phones aren't perfect either. But we want to make all of our users happy, and if you don't know that about Apple, you don't know Apple.
All right. Let's see what he does to make users happy.
I think gift certificate, just like the
I think
price
you're right.
change.
I think you're exactly
and then
right.
I think an exchange, they'll call it an exchange program or something, where you can bring it back and exchange it for another one.
There have been rumors they've slipstreamed a fix that somehow is a coating, an extra coating on this. People are reporting on newer iPhones that they don't feel the ridge there.
you know, the interesting thing is that you could actually.
He's doing sales figures. Can you believe it?
I can't believe he's doing sales figures.
3 million. We've sold well over 3 million
Steve,
since we launched 3 weeks ago.
This is exactly. I think there's a certain tone deafness in Steve's understanding of not only of this issue but in general. In fact, the Wall Street Journal is reporting, their sources said Steve knew about this problem for as long as a year and said it's just too perfect and beautiful. We're going to release it anyway. And if that's the case, by the way, that wouldn't surprise me.
I have to say that so I've been using FaceTime a little bit, and what I really want is just be able to call people using FaceTime without the face part, just Wi-Fi. You know, the whole just call over Wi-Fi.
Well, they say on the iPod Touch
sorry,
they're going
it's
to
a
do
cell
FaceTime over
phone.
email address.
What?
So you wouldn't need a phone number on the iPod Touch. You'd use an email address to connect.
I think it'd be great.
I love
FaceTime spam.
The Apple fanboys in the chat room saying, "Shut up, Leo! Don't say anything bad about Steve. Steve's our guy. How dare you?"
Now he's talking about how PC World named it #1 phone, highest customer satisfaction of any iPhone ever. But we started to get some reports of people having issues with the antenna.
Which is very advanced.
It is very advanced.
He
So
says,
advanced.
Hey, this is advanced.
It is a very advanced antenna. It's just sadly on the outside of the phone where you could attenuate
This is point one. Apple did deny this. The reports that they knew about this for a year. Steve says, we heard about this 22 days ago. In other words, when the iPhone came out. You got to ask, you didn't notice this before?
It's not like we've had our head in the sands for 3 months. It's been 22 days.
You
We were just
didn't-
idiots before.
You didn't test this before?
Well, my
You
theory
didn't
is
notice
they
this?
were making people use those iPhone 3GS cases.
It doesn't matter. I mean,
and so they
presumably they're-
never touched it.
They
Well,
got
no,
it.
but the
Out in
thing
the
is,
real world.
if you touched it in Cupertino, I bet you the signal is incredible, and so it doesn't matter. So you're testing it all with the stuff that were in areas that happen to be that problem. And when you go out into the real world, you've got this stealth case on it.
All right, here we go. It says, Apple is an engineering-driven company. This is Jason. Well, I'm quoting Jason Snell, quoting Steve Jobs. Thank you, Jason, at Macworld Magazine for your coverage. Apple is an engineering-driven company. We have some of the finest engineers in the world in the areas that help us create our products, so we wanted to find out what the real problem is before starting to work on solutions. We've been working our butts off. Twice he said that now. That's because he really doesn't have much of a butt.
He worked it off.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
To come up with real solutions. I'm sorry. I'm being flip.
I like being flip. I'm sorry.
Today,
I'm
we want to
encouraging.
share with you what we've learned. So now let's see what Apple has learned.
They wanted to find out what the real problem, not that hype that you hear on
Not
Tech
that
News
Consumer
Today.
Reports BS.
Right.
No.
Not that non-tech BS.
Yes, not that heavily tested and non
No.
crap.
Let us tell you what we think. It doesn't sound like a good idea to grip your phone and lose signal, but it's not unique to the iPhone 4. You know, they're kind of repeating the mantra.
Well, they can't just do a press event and say,
You can go on
Grip it
YouTube
separately.
and see videos of other phones doing this, but we needed to do these tests ourselves.
In other words, we said this before, so we're not going to backtrack.
Okay.
That's what he
good
does.
translation.
Yeah.
Good
Okay.
translation.
So what they're now going to show is test results of other phones losing bars. Because
lot.
if they do that, that's really, again, this is tone deaf, I got to tell you.
I know I am, but what are you?
Yeah.
That's
BlackBerry
the-
Bold 9700, made by RIM, perhaps the most popular smartphone in the
Okay.
world. Video bars showing 5
Here
to
comes
1.
the FUD.
So he's saying the BlackBerry does this too.
I know I am, but what are you?
He's going to, yeah, exactly. He's
You know,
saying,
That's the translation.
this is not just us here, we'll show you.
This is off
Other phones
point.
doing it.
Nobody's. If BlackBerry's got a problem, go to RIM. This is off point. I don't think this is what Steve should be talking about at this point.
But I do think Apple feels like they're unfairly targeted because of their popularity, as ridiculous as that may sound. And he wants to show, hey, it's not just that Apple made a crap product, it's just that people noticed. At least that's the message he's trying to get out here.
Yeah, everybody makes a crap product, but people noticed our crap product. I don't know. Steve, I don't know. Does that reassure somebody who's having problems with his phone that, oh, well, BlackBerries have this problem too?
Yeah, it doesn't make me feel better about it. So what? As a consumer, I don't care. If
HTC Droid Aris starts off at 4 bars grip, go down to 2 bars. Delay in bar drops is based on an algorithm phone by phone. We did, by the way, on day 1, test it with a Palm Pre. Same, if you grip it, you can get the Palm Pre also.
Yeah.
To me, again,
you can do it with the 3GS, actually. It just wasn't as pronounced. This is the deepest drop because it's on the outside of the phone.
and the issue is, does it drop calls? And to me, that's all that matters. You know, this is a digital phone. Bars are a stupid idea on digital phone. It either works or it doesn't. And I don't care if it's 0 bars. Is my call dropping or not?
Well, what I want to do is that hack that Anantech did where they actually show the decibels.
Yeah. I
So-
think I think
'cause
basically they
that would-
jailbroke it.
that
I don't
would
think
give-
that's.
Well, they didn't have to jailbreak it. They jailbroke it in a way that left that preference setting in and then reflashed the non-jailbroken firmware, and it kept that setting somehow. It's pretty clever. I kind of want to do that just because that tells me something real
you get a
rather than
number.
these stupid bars.
Well, and I was surprised that iOS 4.01 did not, as far as I know, turn back on the diagnostic mode that had been in previous iPhones. I thought that was very suspicious. You know, if Apple says we didn't know about this, it's odd that they had the bumpers out day 1, and it's odd that they, just by chance in iOS 4, removed the diagnostic that would let you see exactly what the levels were.
Somebody's saying CNBC has video.
All right, well, let's go to CNBC.
How do they get video?
I don't know if it's true.
Big jerky jerks.
I'm perfectly content with our live blogging. This is Jason Snell's live blog from Macworld.com.
Probably video on TV rather than streaming.
And, you know, they may have hustled a tape out the door.
I said CNBC is delayed.
Yeah, unfortunately, Comcast took my CNBC off the basic cable, so I have no idea.
Damn them.
Just another reason to be cranky this morning.
So they went through the Droid Aris, the BlackBerry Build 9700, and the Samsung. I don't know which Samsung. Jason didn't say, but they're doing the dog and pony show. This happens to everybody. Now, the key will be if he says, but we found out it happens worse on the 4.
Right. And if you could come into an Apple store and they put some kind of little coating on that, that would be the cheap way to do it, and it would be.
There's rumors that they're already doing that and slipstreaming it into production. You're watching live coverage, as best we can do, of the Apple press event, the 15-minute event, which so far 10 minutes of which
Has been not us.
have been, hey, it's not our fault.
You're saying it's the challenge for the whole industry, and we're doing the best we can, but every phone has weak spots.
Yeah.
It ain't just us. Come on, guys.
All right.
Stop
All right.
picking on Apple.
All right. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. It really comes down to what he says what he does in response to this.
There's a thing
Talk
with
is
Apple
cheap.
where you can get really annoyed by the attitude if you pay attention to it because it is arrogant and it is condescending.
It always has been.
Yeah.
And then that's basically what we're seeing right now, at least so far. Not a response, but as you said, Alex, the other guys do it too.
Yeah. I know I am, but what are you?
Yeah. And we had incorrect bars, which made the drop look far more catastrophic.
That's so Casablanca. We're shocked to find out the bars made it look like you had a stronger signal. Shocked.
We're watching Jason Snell's Cover It Live blog on macworld.com if you want to follow along. You want to check other guys too, just to see what they're saying.
Yeah, I'm taking a look. Nothing different so far.
Tom Merritt, Leo Laporte, Alex Lindsay in studio.
I do think that they should fix this phone problem, but I think that getting to where other phones are already providing, if we're talking about other phones already doing things, it would be really great to be able to choose whether we're making these phone calls via Wi-Fi or, wow, that would be great right there.
He said it's going to take 15 minutes for this briefing.
It's already taken 15.
10. Well, they started a little late, so I was going to say 10. But
By the way,
pretty close.
Rumors are this is the fix. Let's hope those are just rumors.
I was watching X-Files last night. They had an antenna about that big on their cell phone in 1991 or 89, whenever season 1 was.
Is that CNBC? Or
No.
Brian Cooley is on CNBC right now.
That's what somebody said. We'll have him on Tech News Today later today.
Poops Tech is asking about antenna. I dropped 5 calls in 2 days, and I then dropped the iPhone. And so I haven't any experience after 401.
And by the way, I've been getting, I mentioned it on one of the shows or whatever, that we have one of those microcells from AT&T in our office because we were getting...
Apparently it does not have the problem with the microcell. That's what I was...
Well, I'll tell you, microcell is a piece of crap.
Well, because you're close enough to the transmitter with a microcell.
Oh, no, so you get 5 bars, and it's really clear, and then about 15 minutes into your call, it goes... and it's gone.
That has to do with the microcell, not the antenna?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the microcells are not worth it.
Jason Snell, again, quoting Steve Jobs, other smartphone makers decide for themselves about how to do this, but this happens to all phones. We haven't found a way around the laws of physics yet.
May I?
Yeah.
You cannot change the laws of physics.
Captain, what dropping bars like...
You should have cut to that.
Other smart, let's see. And so, photo of a guy in a chair surrounded by objects testing phones in massive shielded rooms at Apple. That's my point is... They didn't just test it with Gray Powell at a bar at the Hofbrau. They tested it, if they're, obviously in many ways. 17 anechoic chambers. Of course, anechoic chambers are for sound, but maybe he meant chambers, RF-free chambers.
Sounds impressive.
Yeah.
$100 million investment,
display.
18 PhD scientists and engineers on our staff. They do some very advanced antenna design. I would expect, although Apple did, after this problem emerged, post listings for antenna engineers. So maybe that was just normal.
That's because they were all
business as
fired.
usual.
So, and he says the
You're all
iPhone went through all this. We knew if you gripped it in a certain way, the bars were going down a bit, like every smartphone. We didn't think it would be a big problem.
Okay, bingo. So they did know about it, and they didn't think it would be a problem, and that's kind of the key. And I think that this is why this is where Apple's response last week came from. It's not a problem. We don't think it's a problem. It's normal. It's not a problem.
You're not telling us something we didn't already know.
And yet, if you ask me, the public is telling them it's a problem. Consumer Reports is telling them it's a problem.
And I think the people are... there's also a side of everyone's looking for a chink in the armor because it's...
And there's plenty of people like me who haven't had the problem.
You
And
have
so
not had drop calls.
I haven't dropped a call yet.
So just Alex and me.
I haven't
Well,
had
I've had
any
lots of
more
drop-
data problems than I normally have on AT&T.
I have lots of drop calls, but I
Okay.
had lots of drop calls before.
This is part of the problem is normally had on AT&T.
Exactly.
So you say the phone is not, iPhone 4
So
is
I
not
haven't
worse.
noticed anything with iPhone 4 personally in my usage pattern that is any different, but I can make it lower the bars when I touch that spot. So I think there's people like me whose usage pattern just doesn't tend to trigger that.
Right.
And then the people whose does are like you, totally frustrated.
And I understand that this is completely anecdotal. This is not me as an antenna engineer saying this is the problem, although we do have Consumer Reports saying it's a problem, whether you dispute their methodology or not.
Here comes the number.
He says, we ask everybody who has problems. We have interesting information from Apple Care. We log the statistics. 0.55%, 0.5% of all iPhone customers have called AppleCare with an antenna issue.
See, this is why we've been so slow to respond. Hardly anyone's complained.
I think this sounds preparatory to no response, but
I think it's preparatory to saying, look, this is why we took
not
so
a problem.
long. But you know what? We're going to be
good.
generous.
Here's a bumper, kid. Get out of here.
Have yourself a bumper.
Get a bumper and get out of here.
Don't bump it all in one place.
And I'll acknowledge that, and I think this is the case, that I'm in a weak area, signal area in my house.
In my
those
office.
bars now more accurately reflect that. And so the drop calls that I have experienced in my car or in my home come from being in a weak area, period.
Yeah.
And you're left-handed.
And I'm
hold
left-handed.
that, yeah.
I did have the iPhone
There's all kinds of things. That
first,
contribute.
second, and third generation. Did experience some drop calls, but in my experience, nothing like this. But again, it's anecdotal.
I've
It's not
definitely had
scientific.
more drop calls on the iPhone 4 than the 3GS, and I'm in weak spots. But like for instance, in my house, and this is with the 3GS, if I kept my phone in my front pocket on a shirt, I was fine.
I drop
If
calls
I put it in
even
my pants
if
pocket.
I
it was
drop
fine.
calls even if I'm in my car in the sink where nothing's touching the phone.
Yeah, see, that's a whole different problem, I think.
So Steve is saying this because of this low complaint rate doesn't really jive with what you read about this problem. Again, it's the media's fault. This is what Facebook said too, by the way. Our users don't care. It's only you, the media, that care. AT&T return rates, like Apple, AT&T has a buyer's remorse return period. People return phones for all sorts of period. Reception isn't what they hoped. They try it. They don't like it. AT&T, largest iPhone reseller in the world, compared to iPhone 3GS, which has been the best-selling smartphone in industry. This is Jason, by the way, kind of typing as fast as he can to keep up with Steve.
And Josh Lowenson over at CNET saying pretty much the same thing. The third specific AT&T return rates, AT&T and Apple have a 30-day buyer's remorse policy. And here, I think we see why they kind of silently a couple of weeks ago dropped the restocking fee. If you brought the iPhone 4 back, they wouldn't charge you the restocking fee.
Right.
Preparatory to them being able to say, we got this amount of returns, and we didn't have any roadblocks in the way.
Right.
You didn't have to pay a restocking fee.
I mean, they could just say we're going to extend you can return it. I mean, that'd be the other. I mean, that would not be necessarily the best option, but you could say, hey, we're going to extend your return rate another 30 days. If you're not happy with it, bring it back in 30 more days, and we'll give you a full refund.
And Snell says, we've got the hard data. It's less than a third the return rates of the iPhone 3GS.
Interesting. I guess I should return mine. I've been lax.
Yeah, you haven't voted with your feet.
I think a lot of people are waiting to hear what Apple does rather than return it.
Well, I think a lot of people like the phone enough that they're like, well, I'll just buy a bumper. Or I'll put a piece of masking tape on
Alex is a
it.
good example.
Yeah.
You just said this is a great phone, and I'm just not going to use it as a phone that much.
Well, it works as a phone when I need it to work as a phone. It's got a great camera. The front-facing camera, actually, even if you're not using FaceTime, is great to take group shots. Like you can just reach out and you can see what you're doing. And I like the form factor. I like a lot of it's so much faster.
I think this is a little bit of a BS statistics, though. They're saying 3GS return rates during this period last year were 6%, which was below the industry average. For iPhone 4, it's 1.7%. Well, I guess the same period last year, so it's the same time frame. I was going to say iPhone 4 is just out. People haven't had time maybe to get frustrated enough to return it yet. But
I think they like the phone. I mean, I think that a lot of the people that you're buying that you are. I think that I don't know what the number is, but I can only imagine 80% of people who bought the iPhone 4 the first day are people who already had 3GSs, already have kind of a beaten mentality when it comes to dropping calls. I mean, we've been, we're so used to bad reception and drop calls that it's not, it doesn't show up like a new problem.
Now he's going to go into that call drop data that they got from AT&T. He says he's not going to give the actual rates, but he'll give the, quote, delta to the iPhone 3GS.
Yeah, I wouldn't give the actual rates either, because if it's more than 20%, that's kind of
AT&T's
embarrassing.
like, no, you're not using that number. You're not using that number.
Do they know what all the dropped calls were? I mean, do they know it wasn't me hanging up, that it was a dropped call? Do they actually
AT&T
know
probably
that?
can tell.
Can they tell?
Yeah, a disconnect from just a dropped call.
What I get, actually they must, because the phone says call failed. So the phone knows that the call failed.
Have you, this is a completely different, what was a bigger problem for me?
This is big. The iPhone 4 drops more calls per 100 than the iPhone 3GS.
Even though we think the phone's antenna is superior, it drops more calls per 100. Not how many more, just more.
Well, it's 4% more.
Where's the 4% come
Well,
from?
4 drops per 100 calls.
No. It says iPhone 4 drops more calls.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading it wrong. That's all right.
Believe me, they're not going to tell you the percentage.
No.
That's the smoking gun.
He's not even going to tell you the delta. He's
Yeah.
just going to say, it's more.
Yeah, it's more.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
That's the smoking
I'm a
gun.
bumper kid.
And that's the number we've got to find out, frankly, because that's the smoking gun. And I've said this all along. It ain't the bars.
It's less than 1 call per 100 than the 3GS.
It's less than 1 call per 100 than the 3GS. So
We
if
still
the
don't know how
3GS
many per 100.
dropped 20 per 100, then this only drops
21.
20.9.
Yeah, right.
But again, this is kind of meaningless numbers because we don't know the total.
What's important is that he is admitting the
It's
iPhone
worse.
4 drops more calls.
Even though they said it was the best antenna they've ever had.
And we're past 15 minutes.
And we've decided that we made a great
Way
antenna.
past 15
AT&T stinks, and we're going to move on.
Percent of all iPhone 4 users have called about antenna reception, 0.55%. All right.
Just
All right. This is a lot of FUD at this point, or baffling us with statistics.
But Jobs, according to Josh Lowenson at CNET, Jobs says even less than 1 is too much for Apple.
Of course it is.
Here it
And
comes.
So this is the build-up for this. We're going to be. This isn't really a big problem, but we're
Right.
such perfectionists, and we're going to be so
Right.
generous. We're going to do
I
something.
guess that's how you'd spin it. I mean, how else are you going to spin it? I would have liked to have seen them. I mean, this is how BP spins it. This is how Exxon spins it. I would have liked to have seen them take a little bullet here and say, you know what, we screwed up. We're going to fix it.
I think Obama gets a lot of latitude because he does. He just goes, "This is stand on me." He's pretty.
I think
open.
we
to doing
know
that.
now that this is what people want. They want an apology, and if they get an apology,
And they're like, okay.
they will move on. But if they get a whiny little, oh, we didn't do anything wrong, but
We're gonna add.
that is not what people are looking for. I'm sure Steve has the best PR professionals working for him, and he probably has a crisis management team.
Right.
I would have imagined that the crisis management advice would be, look, fall on your sword.
Jobs now saying he has a theory on why this happens. Says the new design on iPhone 4 was not shown to anybody, so there were no cases. Cases fix the issue. So when people bought the 3GS, they could buy a case right away. 20% of customers are going out with a bumper case. So not as many people using cases on the iPhone 4.
It's a beautiful phone. I don't want to use a case on it.
And that's why we're seeing more dropped calls. Because, again, he's trying to go back and say, well, this would have been a problem with the 3GS if people hadn't been buying all these cases. But it wasn't a problem with the original iPhone, which didn't have a ton of cases available at launch either. Jobs says that's his theory, but he doesn't know if it's related. He's just wool gathering.
Exactly.
He's
At this
spitballing.
point, he's spitballing, and I want to hear some. Oh, come on, Steve.
Well, we were all waiting for the next shoe to drop, which is, okay, we get it. You've spent over 15 minutes telling us it's not a big problem, but it's a small problem, and that's big enough for Apple to fix it. So what's the fix?
And I think you have to give, if you're going to do it, you can't give out bumpers. You have to give out gift certificates because people have already bought bumpers.
I think gift certificates is exactly the right. Gift
Yeah.
cards. What value? 20, 10, 15,
50.
30?
I think 50.
50.
They
I think
like
50
those
is generous,
easy
but I
numbers.
think 30 is probably 30 is the cost of the bumper.
Is it 30 or 40? 30.
I thought it was
It's
30.
very hard when we look at this data not to conclude that there is a problem, but it's a problem affecting a small percentage of users. I've gotten thousands of emails from users who say there's no problem for them.
He probably has. He puts his email out.
This is I really
he
at the
has.
beginning
Steve, we love
I
you.
understand you don't want to admit you're wrong, and I understand you want to say, look, we're not stupid. We thought it was fine, but he's a little overworking it now. It's like we get it. We don't blame. Let's just say we don't blame you for now. Let's move on.
Steve Jobs is Apple's greatest asset, but in some respects it's a liability. And I think this is an example of where Steve Jobs is a liability to Apple.
Having said this, we care about every user, and we're not going to stop until every one of those is happy. But I think it's important to understand the scope of this problem because the data leads you to the conclusion that it's been blown so out of proportion, it's incredible. He's trying to convince the press. Let me tell you what we're going to do.
This is what we were waiting for the last
20 minutes of rationalization and blaming the media.
I skipped
This is Nixonian.
I skipped I know it's fun to have a story, but it's less fun when you're on the other end of it.
Purely Nixonian. He should start talking about his dog Checkers at this point and his good cloth coat.
Checkers doesn't have any lost
You think
calls.
he's going to call them nattering nabobs of negativism? First, we've released iOS 4.0.1, which fixes the wrong formula for the bars. We recommend every iPhone owner update to
And there
that.
was a nasty exchange bug.
right.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, there was a problem for a lot of exchange
Was
users.
it a bug in a security sense, or just a bug it wasn't working right?
I can tell you that someone I only deal with like one person regularly that has Exchange, and literally her email locks up Apple Mail.
Second, a lot of people have told us the bumper solves the signal strength problem. Why don't you just give everyone a case? Says Steve.
That's not enough for Apple.
Here's where he's going to say no, right? Everyone will get a free case.
Okay, everyone will get a free case.
Refund if you bought a bumper.
Refund. Okay, so not a gift certificate.
All right, this is good. I think this is good.
For every iPhone 4 purchase through September 30th.
And
After
then,
September
and then
30th,
they're
there
gonna
must be
fix
a
it.
fix.
There's a fix.
Yeah. Refund if you bought a bumper. Just give a gift certificate. That's easier to account for, but all right. Fine.
They
You
probably
know,
actually
no.
cost less too.
It's interesting. I think this is good. They need to make this at least this.
It makes
kind
it a
of
little
move.
harder, though, because now I have to go in and get a bumper.
I don't.
If they just
well, you have
emailed
a bumper.
if they
don't you?
just no, I don't.
Sarah has a bumper.
If they just emailed me a gift certificate,
I don't
here's
like the
then I
bumper.
can go buy the bumper.
And by the way, Sarah got a white bumper. Do not get the white bumper.
Ugly.
It's disgusting. No, it's dirty already. It's gray.
Do not
it's
take
horrible.
the brown bumper.
Stay. Yes. we got an announcement. Stay away from the white bumper.
But we can't make enough bumpers. So what we're going to do is source some other cases and
I like
give users
this.
a choice. They'll be able to pick one.
Free cases.
Wow, that is so.
That's
If I
huge.
was making bumpers, I'd be like going, yeah.
Apply on the Apple
Just think of
website
it.
starting late next week. Pick a case. We'll send it off to you. That's simple. That's fairly easy.
You left out the Zoom.
I'm sorry, Zoom. Yes, I did skip the Zoom. Pick a
He's
case.
known for his boom and his Zoom.
We'll send it off to you. That simple. It just works.
It just works.
He didn't say it just works.
It's magical.
And if you're still not happy before or after you get a free case, you can bring your iPhone 4 back undamaged within 30 days for full refund. Well, that's been true the whole time.
Too bad I threw it out the car window after that last dropped call.
That's unfortunate. Maybe you can find it.
I'll look in the bushes, in the weeds. I think this is short of a recall. This is the best thing Apple could do.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, I think they're putting out the fire pretty well.
Well,
No restocking fee. We want to take this has all been true. He's making it sound like it's a new thing.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Does that make sense?
Because
It's-
one more
you
thing.
dork.
It's like a father. It's like, well, look, we feel we didn't make a mistake, but because you're being such a bitch about it,
Yes.
we're going to offer you this free case. Does that make sense? Is that enough?
Is that enough for you? Now some other updates for us. Really, that's it.
So free cases for all.
Free cases is it.
Not just the bumper case.
Free cake for everyone.
Refunds for those who
Case
bought
is
the
a lie.
bumper. And by the way, I should point out that bumper probably cost 20 cents to make, and they charge $30 for it. So they've probably paid for this exchange program already, and they profit. I guess they're going to turn it around.
Oh, he's talking
now.
about the proximity sensor now.
Oh, good, because that's a big issue.
And white iPhone 4 shipping end of July. Quantities limited at first, then ramping up.
They say they're going to try to fix the proximity sensor issue in the next software update.
That seems like a software problem.
Absolutely, it's
Yeah.
a software problem. And well, it's a light sensor, right?
Yeah.
So it could be broken, but there could be a hardware issue. But
Yeah, it sounds like it's not. It
maybe
sounds like
they
they
fix it in
think it's a
software.
software
Yeah.
issue. On July 30th, we're going to bring the iPhone to 17 more countries. Okay. But it's mini
Now that we
keynote
all have you
speed.
here,
Yeah.
with the omission of South Korea. We're not going to do it in South Korea.
screw those guys.
That's because they have the robot that shoots.
Do you think that this will be palliative, will solve the problem that iPhone sales will continue on? Do you think this must have hurt iPhone sales in the last 2 weeks?
I don't
know if it
know.
did.
I'm waiting to
I have
hear
to
some
think it
good
did.
numbers about this.
I have to think
It
real
certainly
people
didn't kill them,
when
but
they
it may
hear
have slowed them.
when they hear consumer reports say that has to impact some real.
Although that hasn't percolated out quite yet to have a big effect.
I mean,
so this is why
I
Apple's
think-
having this press conference today, is to get right out in front of that.
I have to admit that every person that I talk to that doesn't have an iPhone right now that was upgrading and so on and so forth, it's just because it hasn't shown up yet. Like I asked, someone sent me a 3GS. A friend of mine who's very tech savvy sent me an email on a 3GS. I was like, "Where's your iPhone 4?" And he's like, "Oh, it just showed up yesterday. I haven't spec'd it yet." It's just and the
In ending, I'd like to just kind of give you a feel of what we care about, how we operate. We love our users. We really love them. And we try very hard to surprise and delight them.
And for the third or fourth time, I'm not counting.
Sorry
we've
to
worked
interrupt.
our asses off for them. He said it again.
This time he just surprised him. He didn't delight him.
And we make some pretty interesting products. Macs, iPods. He's actually plugging their product line at this
we
point.
do good stuff.
I guess, if you get the press in there, you got
Yeah, might as
ABC
well.
and CNBC streaming. You might as well just...
Love, love, love. We love our users. We work very hard to surprise and delight them with these products. We also connect them with great apps and developers in our apps.
Do you think this is as close as Steve can come to an apology?
Souvenirs will be available in the lobby.
We love you. We love you. We work hard for you.
Yeah. I think he still thinks it's not a big deal.
I think that's very clear.
I think that the folks at Apple don't think it's a big deal. And
you people in the press
you ruined everything.
overhyped this.
Yeah.
And now people are concerned, and so we have to do this.
Right.
And it's your fault.
Right. I think that's where this is all coming from. That's the space that it's coming from.
And he's trying to convince, look, this is where you were wrong in reporting on it. This is why we didn't notice the issue, and this is why we didn't pay attention to the issue. And we love our customers. So when you say we're arrogant and hate our customers, you're wrong. That seems to be what he's trying to get across.
Apple's intraday stock price still not back to the level it was that we began the day. Over $253. It's now at $251.50, but it has rebounded. So the stock market
has reacted.
Likes what it sees. It's up from a low intraday low of.
I'd like to meet the stock market sometime.
Hello, stock market.
Tell me what you like.
Hello,
you like
stock
sugar?
Market.
Still loving the users.
Back up over 253 in real time. So in fact, I think the market has responded and said, "Okay, this is what needed to happen."
Yeah. Well, gosh, I kind of feel like there should have been some fix to this, but he's basically saying there isn't a problem.
Well, there may be a fix coming October 1. It's just that, they can't fix it in midstream. So I think they're just going to say, we're going to give everyone who buys these now bumpers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bet you they're working on some kind of insulator or extra coating or something that's going to make it go away in October. I bet you it'll happen before October. I bet you it'll happen sometime in September. But it's...
Some say it's happening already. I bet it's not a difficult thing to do.
So that's what drives us. When we have problems and people are criticizing us, we take it really personally. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should have a wall of PR people keeping us away from it, but we don't. We all read these stories and we care.
You broke our hearts.
But they do have a wall of PR people.
You broke my heart. Katie Cotton's not a wall. She's just a, I don't know what, an impediment.
We've been trying to understand this, so when we solve it, we really solve it, not slap a Band-Aid on it.
Well, that's what the bumper looks like. It's a big bean.
It does sound a bit like that.
Well, I'm sorry I made you cry, Steve. But I think that they responded appropriately.
Yeah, I think
they
covered it.
The issue for me is whether it solves the dropped calls problem. I have a case on it, and it doesn't. So it makes it better, clearly. And, maybe it's because I'm in a marginal area, and at that point, maybe it's an AT&T issue, not an Apple issue.
I still think that for AT&T, for Apple, there are so many of us that are living in a Wi-Fi environment that allowing us to just decide how we're going to call people and talk to people. If the people on the other, when I look at how all the people I call, 90% of them are on Wi-Fi, and I'm on Wi-Fi, and I don't need AT&T to do this. And that's the thing that I, and it's not, that's not a fix for this. I'm just saying that it is insane. Line 2 already does it. There's a little application called Line 2. You can be on a Wi-Fi call, walk out of the Wi-Fi area, and it'll switch to 3G while you're on the same call.
He's still hammering away at the press here, saying that the problem is the industry. The data supports the fact that the iPhone 4 is the best smartphone in the world, and there is no antenna gate. There's a challenge to the entire industry.
So Nixonian.
We love our customers. We're going to try to take care of every single one. And now he's inviting Tim Cook and Bob Mansfield to join him on stage for Q&A.
So I think he really should have followed that up with, you all are big jerky jerks, and you're ruining everything.
It really feels Nixonian, even to call it antenna gate.
Should we say we're not a crook?
Yeah. It's really kind of an interesting...
But you have to think, if he's looking at this and saying, look, I knew this was a problem. I didn't think it would affect that many people.
I didn't think it was a problem.
I look at the data.
Yeah, right.
I find out it hasn't affected that many people. Why are you constantly hyping it? I get where he's coming from.
The problem is we don't know what the data is because he refused to show us the dropped call data, which is the only data that matters, to be honest.
And I'm sure AT&T doesn't want to show that because they know it'll end up in the next Verizon commercial.
Well, they don't want the iPhone 3GS drop call data alone, much less the delta with iPhone 4 going up.
But what I'm saying is that even just the 3GS or the 4 or whatever, they know that that'll be in the next Verizon commercial. That as soon as they gave away that data.
Absolutely.
I mean, it'll be devastating because I'm sure.
First question, how's your health? I was better earlier this week on vacation in Hawaii, but I'm fine.
He's so angry.
Well,
He's so
and
pissed off that he has to deal with
he's
this.
tired of that question.
No. This is my point. I was on vacation in Hawaii and enjoying myself, and you made me to come back. He is really pissed off. And he's been working his ass off.
Evidently not in Hawaii.
I'm surprised he can stand. He has no ass. Are you considering any changes in the antenna design in the future? We've been kind of preoccupied with this. We're pretty happy with the antenna design on the iPhone 4. It's a better antenna than the 3GS in almost every way. We waved a red flag in front of a bull by putting the Grip Me Here design and made it very obvious. He's saying the reason you're seeing this is because we made it obvious where the weak point is, and so everybody can replicate it.
Okay. Believe me, I'm not trying to drop calls. I really am not. Steve, I'm sorry. I am desperately not trying to drop calls.
I don't know what our next antenna design will be. Maybe our wizards in the antenna lab will come up with something better, but we're not feeling that this is a giant problem we need to fix. Mm-hmm. There it is.
Well, it's pretty clear. I mean, he's pissed off that he has to do this. He doesn't believe it's a problem. He thinks the media forced his hand. And I think probably Consumer Reports, if he's going to blame anyone, it's going to be Consumer Reports. I'm surprised he didn't go after them in some way, saying something about their methodology. There's been some criticism of that.
Because they were the most reserved and at least attempting to be objective about the entire thing.
And they have
rated it the highest smartphone. It's the highest rated smartphone they have.
But they don't recommend it because of the antenna problem.
They stopped short of recommending it.
And I think that's probably the most, that's what drove them to this. I don't think that us saying something is driving them to this. I think it's Consumer Reports saying something that's driving
them to this. Is this a PR problem? Should Apple have had more iPhones in more hands earlier? Well, we did, and we do now, and most people aren't seeing it. If we did this all over again, we'd try to come up with some mitigation, but so far, nobody in the industry has been able to do it.
I really think it just comes back to they don't think that this is that big of a deal.
He's admitting that they have an AT&T and Verizon cell site on campus.
Yeah, somebody said, I can't do the death grip here. Why? He said, we got a strong signal here. We have AT&T and Verizon cell sites on the campus. And Verizon.
That's interesting.
He pointed that out.
Yeah.
He didn't have to.
Yeah, he really didn't have to say the B word.
He could have just said AT&T.
Remind AT&T that we could leave any moment.
I wonder if under the undercurrent of this is a little bit of anger with AT&T. Apple's very careful never to insult their partner here.
Yeah, and they haven't done anything to insinuate that this could just be an AT&T reception issue, which they could have.
It's got to be tempting.
And when you talk to folks that are at Apple, though, you get this kind of semi eye rolling every time they talk about AT&T. They're just like, oh,
right,
these guys, anchors.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons I got a Droid X is because it's Verizon,
right?
You're watching live coverage of Apple's iPhone press conference, brought to you by our friends at Slingbox. Their homepage now has a demo days link that links date and times for upcoming in-store demos at Best Buy, slingbox.com. So you want to look for that demo days link. Slingbox is so cool. Tom and I both use it. You don't use it. We got to get you.
I need to.
Could have watched CNBC on it. I didn't even think about it.
Duh.
I need
this
to
is an
start
example.
slinging.
I can't wait. When you go to a baseball or football game, you can watch the replays on your BlackBerry or your iPhone, and now on your Android. In fact, I think the Android app is pretty. Well, I'm gonna stop. I think it's the best. I am looking forward to an iPad app, though. That'll be a killer app for this. So
yeah, I've been using the iPhone app on it, which is fine.
But you
want that HD.
So here's what happens: you get the Slingbox, you plug it into your Ethernet or your internet. It uses your broadband, then you plug the other parts. It has all these ports for your DVD player, your cable box, your satellite box. All of your TV systems plug into the back of it, and then the cable, you have internet access to it through these apps. So you have a login and stuff. So it's obviously it's secure, and now I can watch my local TV no matter where I am over the internet, including 3G.
And you can change the channel.
Yeah, you change the channel. You can set DVR recordings.
There's an on-screen remote.
It's awesome. People use it for sports a lot because if you're out of town, you can't see the game. But frankly, I think any kind of stuff would be fantastic.
Good eats.
Good eats. Don't miss your good eats.
Yep, you would never miss good eats.
I don't.
And here's the deal: if you've DVR'd it, you can play back your DVRs. So you never,
Right.
it's really great. For somebody like you who travels a lot, you really should have this. You'd be in Africa and you could watch your good eats in Africa. As long as you have internet
This
access.
is very important. I know people are laughing about it, but it's very important.
iPhone, iPod Touch if you have Wi-Fi, BlackBerry, laptops, MacBooks, and Android mobile phones. Go to slingbox.com to find a demo at a Best Buy near you. Slingbox. Thank you, Slingbox, for supporting us with our breaking news coverage of Apple's iPhone press conference.
Ryan Block from Gadget asked, you can cause the signal drop with one finger, not a whole grip. And Mansfield said, on any phone, your body is a signal absorber, and none of us has a walkie-talkie style antenna anymore. Well, maybe they should. We showed that earlier, right?
You could make one with this phone because it's exposed. You
Mm-hmm.
could build a case that has a walkie-talkie antenna, and someone should do it. And I bet you people will buy it.
Were you told earlier, and Jobs answers, you're referencing the Bloomberg article, and it's a total crock. We talk to everyone about it. We have a great community of scientists. They debate everything. It's healthy. The best ideas win. I'm sure in some corners of the antenna world that was debated hotly. But if anyone had said, look, this antenna has questions, we're concerned, we would have dispatched the right people and looked at it.
So Bloomberg's contention that they knew about it for a year.
Wow.
And that Steve Jobs decided not to fix it because he loved the design. And Steve's saying that's a crock now. In fact, he used the BS word.
Yeah. He said, I talked to Ruben, and Ruben says it's total BS, too. And he didn't say BS. Jason Snell wrote the full word. So
Yeah, we don't know what Steve said. But I think
See.
he did say bullshit.
No, Josh Lowenson also
I think he
says,
did say
Ruben
bullshit.
says it's total, and he wrote it all out, too. Although he used asterisks because he was more demure.
Well, we're going to say bullshit because it's news. And when Steve calls bullshit, so do we.
Do you owe people an apology? People say it's the coolest phone they have ever had, but we want people to be satisfied and they can return the company.
Answer
That's a
is
typo.
no,
Yeah.
we don't owe anyone an apology. We are not sorry. I don't know. I feel like it's not a question of whether you owe somebody an apology. It's a question of, is it the right thing to do? And I think they would have gotten a lot farther. They did the right thing in the long run. I wish Steve had just said, hey, look, we're sorry. You could have said, hey, I'm really sorry this has happened to you. We didn't think it was a problem. Obviously, you do. We're going to give you cases.
Well, that's essentially what he said. It just didn't.
With a lot of fudging.
It could have been.
Yeah.
He
And
could have.
I never heard him say, I'm sorry.
He could have.
he never did.
He could have said that whole part that was in the first 20 minutes, the way you said it. In 3 or 4 minutes, he could have said the whole thing. We heard these reports. We talked to our engineers. They said, yeah, it's going to go down a little bit. We then looked at our return rates, and they were low. We didn't think this was really that big of a deal, but it kept on coming up. It kept on coming up. So we've decided to give you bumpers.
Yeah, there's lots of ways you can handle it. I think probably, remember that, we're watching it a lot more closely than everybody else is. The headline is very simple. Apple offers free cases and refunds for those who bought a case.
And that's it.
And that's it. I don't think the mainstream media, USA Today, is not going to say Steve Jobs didn't apologize. I don't think that's the issue.
Well, but they will when they write the articles.
The next question is, do you owe people an apology? And he says people say it's the coolest phone they ever had.
Right.
Yeah.
However, and I got to say this, let's think ahead to that headline. Does that solve the problem, or does it, in fact, look like an admission to everybody, yeah, we got a problem with the phone? I think this is where Apple's real concern is. They don't want to say, yes, there's an antenna problem. And I think that
and
the
they might have some
headline
legal
says,
reasons too. I mean,
it might, absolutely. I think the headline says, Apple offers all iPhone 4 owners a free case and a refund for those who bought bumper cases. That looks like Apple saying, we got a problem.
Yeah. Whether even with all of this Sturm and Drang,
You don't hear that part.
You
hear the headline.
We didn't think there was a problem, but you guys made it out to be one. And I think he is trying to massage the press into not going back and writing another assassination piece and saying he's trying to defer them from writing it that way, writing it as an admission. He's trying to massage that message as much as he possibly can.
And we'll see how it turns out too, because I think that the other side of this though is that we really, the thing that's constraining Apple's sales in the iPhone right now is their ability to make them. I mean, when you look at,
They're sold out still.
They're sold out. I'm trying to buy 2 for my kids and some for my parents and so on and so forth, and I can't. I mean, if it's kind of like, no one goes to that restaurant anymore because it's too busy.
Here's a germane question. Is Apple a company that makes users choose between form and function? Right to the point of Steve saying, no, I want it to look good, not necessarily work good. He says, no. We are a company that likes to do both. We try very hard to make our products. Look at the iPod Touch. Plug. We work to make it wonderfully thin, and that costs us extra, but we do. The Retina display is being widely acknowledged as the best display we've ever created. It blows away every other phone display, and it costs a little more. We had to work really hard to bring it into reality, but that's what we do. The iPhone 4 antenna is an exterior antenna. It doesn't use internal space, so we can add more battery and give it a longer battery life. And there are some other advantages, too. It's the thinnest smartphone in the world, so we try to have our cake and eat it,
Droid
too.
X seems thinner, but maybe it's not.
Let's see. I can actually, yeah, really, that's an interesting point. I got my phone right here.
Also, he says AT&T is giving full refunds and will let people out of their contracts. I mean, Steve Jobs says, I believe so, yes.
It's thinner.
It's thinner. And, of course, it doesn't have that ugly bulge.
Oh, it's got the bump on the top.
That's, by the way, probably the antenna.
Yeah.
That bump makes it feel thinner somehow.
Well, yeah, because
it's
it's thin in your hand. It also feels lighter. I don't know if it's lighter, but it's not as dense feeling, I guess, is the...
Yeah, you don't. The iPhone 4 is very metallic.
I love the iPhone 4 design, and one of the reasons I hate to put it in the case is it's a beautiful design. I'm with Steve on that. I don't know if the case mitigates the antenna problem completely in my case.
Responding to whether they could have done something different at launch, Jobs says, I don't know that they're what we could have said. Maybe we could have set the expectations appropriately that most smartphones have weak spots. We certainly could have shipped the phone with a better algorithm, but most smartphones seem to have the same characteristic as the iPhone 4. When you grip them in a typical way, they lose some signal strength. The iPhone 4 seems no different.
No, I have to say, there's nothing they could have said at launch. Having decided on the design and knowing about the issue, it's done. You made that decision. Mm-hmm. What are you going to say at launch? You're not going to say this is a crappy phone or we've got a problem. You're going to say this is the best phone we've ever made. You're going to say exactly what Apple said.
And it is the best phone they've ever made.
It is, and it is perhaps the best antenna they've ever made. I mean that's it drops more calls, but they're not going to say that on launch. Oh well, we love this phone so much. It does drop more calls, but it's a great phone. They're not going to say that. It goes back to pre-launch, where somebody somewhere made a decision. I'm sorry, I don't care what Steve says. Somebody somewhere made a decision that, it drops more calls, but we don't think it's going to be a problem. That's the decision they made, and that's what's coming back to bite them.
He did essentially say, we didn't think this was going to be a problem.
Right.
So
they knew about it.
You're right.
There's no question they knew about it. They just didn't think it was an issue. And he's saying, again, it's not possible to make a smartphone that doesn't have weak spots. Well, I think you could make a big one that wouldn't fit in your pocket. Some of these guys are making Hummers now. Interesting. That's definitely a shot at the Droid X, which I even have called the Hummer of smartphones. You could make a big Hummer that you couldn't get your hand around, but nobody would want to buy it.
Well, if he is talking about the Droid X, he's wrong.
Apparently,
Plenty of
people
are buying it.
I actually love the Droid X. I've been very happy with it.
Do you like it better than the iPhone 4?
It doesn't drop calls, so ultimately, yes. And it's Verizon. I love, I think one of the things that the iPhone 4 interface, because it's still stacked icons now with folders, I think widgets are a very powerful way to bring information front and center. And, of course, there's real multitasking on this as opposed to the faux multitasking. You do have folders. I think the folder implementation, frankly, is a little cleaner. I do prefer it, to be honest with you. And there's also a political issue. This is an open platform, so anybody can write software for it and deliver it and doesn't have to have the approval of Apple.
By the way, we shot some...
he's going
Mac breaks with in 4K with Sal Segoyan, and the 4K will be fun. We're just putting it up on YouTube. But the content on how to do HTML5 stuff.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Sal's become the HTML5 guy,
and it is stunning. I mean, it's just so easy to build your own little mini apps.
He's talking about the press now.
I want to point out somebody in the chat room pointed this out on the Gadget. Live blog at 10:46 a.m. He's got a quote from Steve. Long pause. To our customers who are affected by this issue, we are deeply sorry.
He did apologize.
And we are going to give you a free case or a full refund.
So thank you for the correction. He did apologize. In fact, that's a good apology. We are deeply sorry. If I'm USA Today, I put that in quotes. We are deeply sorry, and we're going to give you a case or whatever it is they're giving us. So that's good. That's what he needed to say. I think that's good. That's sufficient. So I apologize that I just didn't see that on Jason's feed.
Connie at Bloomberg says, why September 30th for the case limit? Good question. He says, we just are going to wait and see. Maybe we'll have a better idea. It's just a chance to say we'll reevaluate it in September. So that goes back to what you were thinking.
Right, that they're going to do something.
Connie G is the byline on the...
as referred to as total bullshit.
On the Bloomberg story. Interesting. So she did get invited. So there you go. Apple clearly will invite people they don't like to these events.
We're not unliked. We're just not noticed.
Yeah, that's fine. I actually prefer to run under the radar. Kevin McKean at Consumer Reports in the audience. What about refunds on third-party cases? No, but it's a very small number of those cases that are out there. I guess I'm a small number. We wish it would have been higher because then there would have been more cases out there. Well, that's interesting. He's pretty much saying cases solve the problem, and we wish more people had bought them.
Yeah. But your case doesn't seem to solve the problem for you.
In your case.
It does solve the... It's interesting. It solves the death grip problem. Mm-hmm. But I'm still dropping calls, which means it's, just AT&T probably. I like this phone. I don't like it well enough to put up with any negatives. I think the vast majority of iPhone owners do. I talked to a lot of the people in the line at Verizon for the Droid. Many of them, it was their first smartphone. I would guess that the motivation there is they weren't willing to go to AT&T. They had Verizon contracts. Normal people care a lot about these early termination fees. They care a lot about their phone company. People do not want to change their wireless company. So I think that a lot of people aren't buying iPhones just because they don't want to go to AT&T. They don't want to change carriers.
Right.
And that's why there's such uptake on these Android phones is because, I can stay with my carrier. I think that's a lot of it.
They're asking why it's so hard to get cases, and McKean is saying, as a consumer electronics manufacturer, if we tell the world our future products are dimensions, people tend to stop buying our current products.
They don't
if they
do
that.
Yeah.
Then we have a crisis and have to focus on that and stop focusing on new products. So
I was told that by Griffin at Griffin Technologies. I said, surely you knew that they were going to do a new connector. This was some time ago with the iPod. He said, no, they don't tell us anything.
McKean goes on, sometimes websites buy stolen prototypes and put them on the web. We don't like that. But if we give things to case vendors, they have a history of putting them on the web too. So that's what we run up against.
Honesty. Now, see, I am getting a little bar droppage. I hate to say it in this case. And this is the question. Spencer Webb was talking about this. Is it attenuation or is it bridging? He said
it could be
it could be both. And he said getting your hand away, even a few millimeters away from the antenna is a good thing. But you can see it is affecting it a little bit, but not to the degree it was before. We were able to get down to 0 bars without the case.
Leo, this is the way I prefer to hold my phone.
He's got the Vulcan mind.
Just 2 fingers. That's all you need. 2 fingers. I tried to do it with one and I dropped it.
I've said this several times, and I just want to reiterate it.
Into the port there.
I couldn't care less about bars. In fact, I agree with Jerry Parnell. Take the bars off. There should be a light that says you have enough signal to do a call or you don't. It's binary because it's a digital phone. My only issue is with dropped calls, and I think ultimately that's all that matters. And so, Steve, if he believes that the issue is merely a cosmetic one of bars, which they must because that's the fix they put out, then I think he's right. If he's saying, people are just complaining about bars, that's not important, he's right. I think there's more to it. I think it's people complaining about dropped calls, but I don't know. I mean,
John Gruber asks if any of them carry iPhone 4s with bumper. They all pull their phones out. None of them have a bumper.
Because they're on the Apple
Because they work
campus.
at the Apple
Was
campus.
that? They just explained that earlier.
Yeah. Gruber says he doesn't have one either. Oh, no. Or maybe Jason's saying to Gruber, I don't have one either. Job says, I have an iPhone 4. Reception in my house is way better, but I hold it like this a lot, and I've never had a problem with it, so I'm thrilled. That doesn't mean other people don't have problems, but that's been my experience. Thank you, Steve. That's good. He's acknowledging that it's not just him.
When you come into my house, I think you're going to love it.
And I'm inviting everyone who's unhappy with their iPhone 4 to come to my house for a party. And I'll show you how great it is.
You're watching live breaking coverage. I've got to go, unfortunately, so I'm going to let you take this over. Actually, we all have to go because we have an 11 o'clock show. I don't think anything more important is going to be said. I think what had to be said was said. Steve Jobs says, I am very sorry. We are deeply sorry about the problems people have experienced. We think it's common to all smartphones, but because we care about you and we believe in the Apple community, we are going to respond by giving free bumper cases to anyone who asks through September 30th. Furthermore, refunding those folks who've already bought bumper cases. And because there aren't enough bumper cases to go around, we will also have a select number of cases that you can order on the Apple website for free, and Zoom, they will be shipped out to you. So basically, I think the response from Apple is we acknowledge there's a problem. We don't think it's the problem that the media's made it out to be, but because we care about you, We are going to get you cases, and we believe cases fix the problem. I think they've been very clear about that as well. We thank you for joining us for our live the press conference coverage brought to you by Slingbox. Get a demo at Slingbox today by going to slingbox.com and finding one near you at a Best Buy. Tom Merritt, thank you for being here. Tom will be back with Tech News today this afternoon, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern Time, 21:30 UTC at live.twit.tv. Alex Lindsay is at the Pixel Corps, pixelcorps.com for that great guild of multimedia artists working and learning together. Pixelcorps.tv for the podcast and that new 4K podcast.
Hopefully we'll have it out. I mean, we've never done one before, so part of this is R&D, but hopefully we'll have it out next week. And I don't know if you'll actually be able to play it back, but we had to do it. You know us. It was over the top, so we took it.
Pixelcorps.tv. And Alex, of course, is one of the regular hosts on Mac Break Weekly every Tuesday here.
We had a great time with people who came. We are going to do more public streams. We had people ask. We had about 3,200 people come watch us shoot 4K with Sal.
That's fantastic.
And the content.
How many?
3,200.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I was a little surprised. I was expecting we had about 150 Pixel members, and everyone else was public.
You're saying 3,200?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that's great.
I was a little surprised.
That's like a dignation. That's bigger than a dignation.
I was a little surprised that that many people.
Where were you? What was the venue?
It was at the Pixel Corps. It was it wasn't in person. It was online.
Oh, online. I was going to say.
No.
Where'd you put them?
No.
I get it. 3,200 people watched it. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
That's still fantastic.
I was surprised that you were so surprised. I was like, well, it's just people online.
This is my 10:45 calling. I'm on my way. We had to do live coverage. I'll be right there. Sorry. Bye-bye. Anything else you guys want to say about the press conference? You feel like...
He did finally mention Consumer Reports right there at the end in the last question and just went back to hey, we needed to take some time to respond to this and gather data. We're engineers and scientists. And I think we've covered that, and we'll kick it around a little more on Tech News today. We won't belabor it, but if you want to see more of the fallout reaction, check that out at 2:30 Pacific.
He used the words stunned, upset, and embarrassed by the Consumer Reports stuff that came out this week. That's significant. I think Apple did the right thing.
Well.
He also just said Google's a great company. Because he's like, people like to tear down successful companies. Look at Google. Google's a great company.
Wow.
And I see them
jumping on us now.
Would you rather we are Korean companies than American companies? I don't know what's going on now. Steve's gone in a fugue state. Maybe we better cut this off. This Week in Law is coming up next. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you a little later today with Tech News Today and more coverage of the Apple events. Thanks, everybody.